And Larissa, are we recording? Just a quick reminder to record. Yeah, there we go. Great. Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here. We're so happy that you're joining us for this conversation about parenting elementary school kids during a pandemic. It's so nice to see all these familiar faces and maybe some people from even outside of Gloucester. I'm just glad that so many of us could come together and share information and tap into our experts tonight. I'm Aria. I'm the Executive Director of Gloucester Education Foundation. I'm also a mom of 3 kids in the Gloucester schools. So this conversation is really very relevant to me as well as all of you. Just quick, a few things about Gloucester Ed Foundation. We promote excellence and innovation in Gloucester schools, and we fund new opportunities for students and teachers. We've put about $8 million worth of programs into our schools so far, and we are only here, we only exist because of generous local people and businesses who donate to our programs. So if you are one of those people, thank you so much. Tonight's event is a collaboration between GEF and Gloucester Public Schools and local parents. And a big shout out to parents Christy Stropel and Robin Town, who really helped a lot to plan this event and get the word out. Thank you so much. This event tonight is just a chance for us to come together and kind of recognize issues that we're all going through at the same time this year. We'll tap into our experts, get some answers to our questions, help each other, share our own ideas about what's working in our houses, maybe what's not working, and also just help each other get through this very long parenting year. Just really quick housekeeping before we start. This event is being recorded and we'll be posting it online afterwards. So if you know someone who couldn't come but wants to see it, please make sure they know that they can access it later. Also, next Tuesday night, we'll be having a similar conversation that focuses on middle school and high school kids. So we're looking forward to that as well. And we hope, encourage you to join us or spread the word to people who that might be helpful to. You're encouraged to keep your video on so we can see each other and feel like we're having a real conversation tonight, but please stay muted during the event. If you keep your screen in speaker mode, you'll see the person who's talking. And if you have a question or an idea to share, we really encourage you to do that. You can either put it in the chat and we'll relay your question to our panelists, or you can raise your hand. There's a little function at the bottom of the screen. There's a little icon called reactions. And if you just hit that and then raise your hand, then we'll call on you to ask your question. We'll try to get to as many people as we can tonight. So before we kick off, I just want to welcome Superintendent Ben Lummis, who's joined us. Ben has done such a phenomenal job of leading the Gloucester Public Schools team this year to keep our kids in school and learning and engaged, both remotely and in person for over 100 days. So thanks, Ben. Take it away.
Thank you, Aria. I really appreciate that. I didn't realize in our planning that there was that sort of intro for me, but I'm okay with it. Great to see you folks. Thanks for being here tonight. I am, I'm the father of twins who are college seniors, actually. Actually, one is not. She's had the good sense to take the year off. She didn't want to do it this way, and that makes sense. My son was raring to get back and with his buddies, so he's almost going to graduate. But no matter what age our kids are, this has probably been the most difficult year of parenting we ever could have imagined. And it keeps on going. One of the folks, I was just talking to some folks sharing who lives in another district, and she was saying that her children haven't seen some of their friends for a year, like in person for a year, and we have the good fortune and the great work here in Gloucester to have really been able to push through that by really working together, parents putting out tremendous effort, our staff, our teachers, our educators, our principals, the city, so many people coming together to ensure that we could get our kids back together as much as possible. It still isn't the same. They're not doing a lot of things they love to do. And it's also been just exhausting for them, for us, for everyone, as parents, as family members. So I really, really do want to just, help just make sure that's part of the reason, we've worked so hard to keep our kids in school. and just want to thank all of you for your help in doing that. One thing I really firmly believe in is you get a bunch of good people together and have them share ideas, and they learn a lot of great things, and so that's one reason that I'm so happy that GEF and Christy and Rob and other parents have pulled this together, and also next week's forum too. We just see again and again, whether it's parents or staff or principals, that get good people together, unleash them with some good ideas, and they're going to help a lot of other folks. So I'm looking forward to tonight, looking forward to your questions. And we'll just say that, from the beginning, it was certainly about learning and academics to get our kids back in, but as much it was about mental health and their social, emotional health, their connection with friends, their connections with their teachers and our school staff. And even though I would say we're probably doing better than a lot of places whose kids are still remote, we still have tons of challenges in our families and tons of challenges in your families. And our kids are still we got to watch out, look for them, take care of them. And so I'm really glad that we're having this forum tonight, next week, about the mental health of our students, about parenting in the pandemic. And we got to watch them closely. Kids are really struggling in so many ways. And just let's keep working together to take care of them. So thank you, Aria. Thanks so much for putting this together.
You bet. Thanks for being here, Ben. All right. So without further ado, I want to get us started. I want to introduce our two awesome panelists. We have with us tonight Lisa LaBella. Hi, Lisa. Thanks for being here.
Mute now.
Thanks. Lisa's the adjustment counselor at West Parish Elementary. She's been there for 5 years. And before that, she was a guidance counselor and an assistant principal in the Northwood School District. And she's also worked as an outpatient mental health clinician for Children's Friend and Family Services and Tri-City Mental Health. Lisa's a mom of 3, and she loves hitting the beach in Gloucester, biking, and reading. So thanks, Lisa.
Thank you for having me.
We also have with us tonight Dr. Brian Orr, who's a local pediatrician and owner of Brian Orr Pediatrics. Dr. Orr has authored 2 parenting books. He's written many parenting articles for local papers. His work goes beyond his practice here to nonprofits and international care systems for children. He also loves creating artwork, and he's an avid storyteller. He's also a parent of 3. Welcome, Dr. Orr. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So I would love to get us going. I see we already have a hand up. Christy Stropel, please take it away and ask your question.
Hi, everybody. Just curious, I have 2 children, Cody, he's 6 and Ryder's 4. And just, kind of a general question that I think a lot of parents struggle with is, what is actually safe for our kids to do right now with other kids, right? So like things keep changing, the rules change, guidelines change, number of people you can be around change. And I've kind of been just listening to, the news or what the principals say or what the school says, but, just a general, like we're all kind of confused and my kids are kind of confused. They're like, well, I see my friends in school, why can't I go to their house? Or I'm playing soccer, why can't I go do this? So just, what, in your opinion right now, what is safe for our kids to do?
Thanks, Christy. I'm going to pass that to Brian to start out, and then maybe Lisa, you can add on to whatever.
Yep.
You hear from Brian.
So I think it's very safe for kids to do a lot, especially your age kids at 6 and 4. This pandemic has not been, largely has not been a pandemic of children. Children in the US have only made up 10% of all cases of COVID. It has not been a dangerous illness for kids that age. So we should not be really worried about young kids and this illness. Besides the fact that now we had a beautiful day today, we're gonna have a beautiful day tomorrow. Almost nobody can get COVID outside. So we should stop any fear about outside playgrounds, get kids out, get kids to playgrounds, meet up with people outside. You can do as much as you want outside. You have to be in a face-to-face conversation with somebody for a while without a mask to get COVID from somebody outside. It's not impossible, but it's near impossible to have it with the distancing that we naturally would do between people outside. So getting kids outside, doing things with other groups of parents outside, absolutely get them out there. Kids are not usually big spreaders of it. We have not seen that in the lower grades. That's one of the reasons why there's a big push to get kids back to school. Under fifth grade, we just don't see kids spreading the illness very much. So, liberalizing and getting kids together, even inside with masks or whatever, I would liberalize things a little bit. It's very important for us. We are a year into this and we all have somewhat of a cabin fever. And yes, we don't want to bounce the curve back up again, of course. So you have to have some little bit of wisdom, but you have to also recognize that your age kids have not been the problem. And so that letting them have some friends and groups that they can get together, and especially outside, by all means, you should be doing it. And outside, you should feel very free and relaxed. I hope that helps.
Thank you very much.
Lisa, do you have anything to add about that, or what's okay, what's not okay, what you're
Sure.
seeing at school?
I guess from my vantage point as an adjustment counselor, we do have a lot of families. So we have different, it feels like different things are happening in schools and at homes. We have different, things coming at us at all times in with regards to things like this. So what we do as a general rule is say, okay, so what is the expectations? The expectation is, you wear your mask, you're 6 feet, you do some distance. So as long as we practice the guidelines that are put out, kids have a really good understanding of expectations. So, following the basic understandings of what the data suggests, like Dr. Orr says, no, we're going to have 20 friends over without our masks because we can't get it out, so it's basically saying this is what's realistic and this is what we can do. And as long as we do that all together, then kids they do follow these expectations pretty well. As long as they're not getting conflicting ideas as well. So that's why using what Dr. Orr said in the data is really helpful. And also what the school is doing. If your kids are in school and this is what the school is practicing, then this is helpful for kids outside, things like that. So any questions or concerns you have, obviously ask questions of teachers. Are you letting your kids run around and doing all that? Yes, we are. They're outside, they're masked, things like that. So anything that you can do that would be helpful, that we all do the same, that would be really helpful as well for kids in terms of them understanding what the expectations are as well. If that makes sense.
It does. Thank you.
And you keep moving around. Sorry, you were on to the left. Now you're over to the right. I was trying to talk to you when you were over there. Thanks.
We have another hand up from Robin. Go ahead, Robin.
Hello, everybody. Sorry it's a little loud at my house. I'll apologize in advance. I have 5 boys, and I have noticed with them throughout this that there's a sudden fear of illness. My dad got a fever once. My 2-year-old had a fever a couple weeks ago. My 10-year-old especially gets so anxious and fearful, which a year ago we would have just brushed it off, but any little virus is making him have such anxiety that I don't know how to help him. I've tried to let him know that it's okay and people are going to get sick anyway, but he thinks that it's going to be traumatic and devastating anytime anyone gets sick. How can I get him through this?
Good one. Lisa, let's go to you first on that one.
Sure. So I think that's very normal. I don't think that any kid right now, when they hear the word sick or flu or any of that, is not a little bit nervous. One of the things that we had talked about with the staff as well as parents, is our response is key. So how we respond to kids when they're anxious really does set the stage for how they will then respond. So for example, if a student doesn't feel well and everyone goes, oh my God, the student has we all have to get them over here. We tend to do that as adults because our brains are going in a different direction. We want to keep people safe. So I think the first rule of thumb is to realize how we're reacting to kids when they are not feeling well. One of the things that we've had to do in schools as well, I'm also a parent of 3, is when someone gets sick, everyone take a breath. What are you feeling? What's going on? Because there are allergies, there are normal illnesses, there are a lot of things happening that happen in normal times. Like Dr. Orr had said, I want to reiterate that is kids in general, even if they do get sick, they're not rising to the level of severity. So that's another important data point to share with them is that, kids who get sick with, even if it's diagnosed as COVID, we don't obviously want to share that piece with them. But when kids get sick, they don't really get too sick. In most cases, kids they get over this very well. So that's really important to share. It's also important to ask them what they're nervous about. We tend to try to answer questions that are in our brain when kids really want to know, will I miss school? Meanwhile, our heads are going in this direction to say, are they really nervous about getting sick? Or are they nervous about missing school? Or what is it that you are nervous about? And have real life conversations depending on their age so that you're answering the questions, what is making them particularly anxious? Because we tend to do that a lot with kids. We think they know what they're asking, what they're nervous and worried about, and we tend to give them way too much information, and that tends to exacerbate anxiety. We don't want to give way too much that they can't handle, so now they're worried about something they actually weren't worried to begin with. So we really want to have very clear communication with them and see what they are worried about. And then if it is the physical illness, then I would go with what Dr. Orr said and take the data points and take exactly what the pediatricians are saying about COVID with kids as a first step.
That's
Yeah.
helpful. Brian, do you have anything to add on to that?
Sure. That's perfect. What Lisa said is perfect. I mean, kids do look at us for the reassurance, and how more comfortable we are with the situation, the more comfortable they'll be with the situation. I mean, I think it's fair to recognize that we've all been through a very hard, traumatic, horrible year. I mean, we can go through the statistics, 500,000 dead and many more sick, and many people in the community have lost grandparents or know somebody who died of COVID. I mean, this has an impact on everybody psychologically and kids, and creates a lot of fear. The good news about this is that we're coming out of it. We really are coming out of it. And with the vaccine, we are showing lots of positive signs as the CDC comes out with new recommendations, loosening up strategies. I mean, this is all good news and good reassurance. So we can start reassuring our kids that of all the things they've been hearing about with the negativity about this illness, that there's positive things coming to us. And summertime, spring and summer is coming. It should be a good time. We should be improving. We should have a lot of people vaccinated by June. So we are in a very positive place in regards to where this is going. And even though kids are, they're hearing things, they are seeing the news, they are hearing about everything that's happening. And it's time for us to all take a deep breath and recognize that this has been a hell of a year, but you know what? Things are happening in a very positive direction that you hear about almost every day. So we are going to come out of this, and your kids are going to be fine. Reassurance about their illness is very important, because they are not going to get very sick over COVID. Most of the kids I've seen with COVID have not had any symptoms at all. So getting sick doesn't mean you have COVID. Kids with COVID don't necessarily get sick. It's all a lot of reassuring things about kids and COVID.
Thank you both.
I feel like what you kind of touched on in that, Robin, is starting to talk about anxiety. That's one way that kids are showing anxiety. And I think, kids different ages show it obviously in different ways. I'm wondering if there's more to say, like, could we talk a little more about like, what does anxiety look like in younger children, and how do you know when it's just a bad day, or just, I'm upset about, whatever, like the game I was playing didn't work out. How do you know when that's just frustration of a child or anxiety and when your child needs help? I think sometimes it's hard to tell, and sometimes it's hard to know what to do next. So can I ask Brian, we'll go back to you on that one.
Okay, I was prepared to.
We can go to Lisa. Let's go to Lisa.
You want to go to me? Oh, I was just going to say my tea. Okay, good. So I guess what I do want to reiterate, especially with this question, because you had introduced, experts or whatever. I think that ultimately you are experts of your children. So every time I have somebody call or question or wonder about something, that to me already says that you're nervous about something. That means you think something is up. So I think that, first of all, I want to say that all anxiety is not bad. Anxiety is something that gets kids to move and gets kids to do things. It presents negatively a lot of the times when it starts to interfere with the normal functioning of your day. So if your child is not getting up because they're under the covers and they don't want to go to school because they're petrified of getting COVID, that is something that's affecting the functioning of your child moving forward. If your child is crying and they don't want to get up, they're tired, it's not normal, those are yes, we're all getting, we're all having a hard time functioning. Our resilience is lower. So I think that when anxiety stops a child from being able to get what they need to get done on a normal day, yes, that's when you need a little bit of help. I think the worry about when anxiety gets bad is what causes a lot of parents to be very concerned. So, for all of us to take a big breath and say, yes, we are all experiencing some level of anxiety. I think one of the questions was, I found my student crying in their room, my child crying in their room, and they didn't know what was happening and they didn't know why they were crying. And that's actually normal, going in your room and letting it out, say, well, do you feel better right now? Well, yes, I actually feel a little better. Okay, so where do we do next? Or no, I don't feel better. Okay, do you want to talk about it a little bit? What is making you cry? I don't know. Okay, let's talk about your day. So just getting kids to open up because they may not know. Dealing with uncomfortable feelings, I think we've all dealt with those for the past year. This has been the worst year. Every uncomfortable feeling has been highlighted this past year, and kids are not used to having to do that all at once. They do with it small events or things that happen over time. This all just hit them all at once. So taking a collective breath and going back to basics and working them through just getting through the day and seeing if that helps. But knowing when to ask a teacher for help, a trusted friend, anyone in the family to say, listen, I'm not really sure what's going on. Do you think you want to just talk to, so-and-so, just to see what might be up? Because kids are sometimes more apt to talk to other people than their parents. So any connections and relationships you can make for kids would be really helpful. Did you want to add to that, Dr. Orr?
Sure. I think the year of isolation has caused a lot of problems for a lot of kids. I mean, the statistics are high across the country, and in fact, even internationally. And it's this year of isolation has brought an expansion of the higher rate of anxiety we were already seeing, and even more higher percent of depression as well. So these things are real. So we can't not, we have to pay attention to them. I think the point of the question in regards to when can you tell, Lisa took the words right out of my mouth, because, a worried person, if a student doesn't worry about getting his or her assignments in, they're not going to have success in school. I mean, I certainly worried all through medical school about having my study time and my lessons done in order to pass. So you can't be successful without a certain amount of worry and concern. So when is it abnormal? Because there's some amount of worry is right. You should have it. You should worry about the exam and work to succeed in it. The problem is when it becomes dysfunctional and you get blocked and you're not able to get through to continue to get to school or to get the assignment done. And mostly what I see with young kids is things that were going well, all of a sudden there's a fall off of things. You see a drop of things. You may see more time in the bed and less interest in things outside of that, things that they usually were interested in. So when you're seeing that kind of change or change in success in school, when you're seeing those kind of changes, that's usually a light bulb should go off, especially with things that you're hearing from them personally. So that's when you really should contact. And even though a lot of people are busy with a lot of these issues now, you should really reach out to a professional when you're seeing some anxiety and depression in your kids.
Even the teacher, even your child's teacher, to say, listen, you know, if everyone is busy and overwhelmed and it's hard to navigate some of the resources, but that's a trusted person in your child's life, whether it's online or not. It's someone they see every day. It's someone they connect with every day. And even as a school adjustment counselor, I work with kids in mental health, but they always want to talk to their teacher first. You know, it's parents and then teachers, and then eventually they'll filter down to me. But that is a trusted adult they see every single day. So even a quick comment from a teacher or a check-in from a teacher could really go a long way when it comes to anxiety with kids. And the other point I wanted to make about especially elementary kids is structure and predictability as much as you possibly can. COVID has brought the most unpredictable situation to everybody. Unpredictability, lack of structure, all of those cause for immense amounts of anxiety in adults as well as kids. So as much as you can say, you know, I know that all of the experts have said, get up at 7, get your meal at 7:15, you know, all of that for kids, if they can know what to expect, as much as you can control, that really goes a long way with addressing any additional anxieties. There's a lot we can't control, but there is a lot that we can control, and our responses and how we manage their day is one thing we can absolutely control. And as much as we can keep that pretty much systematic throughout the day, that's really helpful for them as well.
That's a really good reminder, because I think we're all like, you know, you get to the point where you're like so tired, you can't do the structure anymore. You forget how important it is. It's like, I give up, but it's good to be reminded of that.
So not to say that you don't have pancakes for breakfast. I mean, pancakes for dinner. That's absolutely okay when you don't feel like cooking, or hey, you guys go pick what you want. I'm just meaning that, you know, we're going to go to school, we're going to do that. But throughout the day, to have the flexibility also is very important. I know we talked about that before as well. So
Yeah, definitely. Christine, I see you have your hand up. Do you want to go ahead and ask a question?
Yes, thanks. Thanks, guys, for doing this. My question is, I'm looking for resources for my kids that's sort of geared to them. I know CNN did that Sesame Street. It's a little too young. It wasn't really well accepted by my boys who are 8 and 13. So I guess for this, focusing on the 8-year-old. Do you guys know of any resources that are online that can, of course, I try to digest information and then explain it to them the best way that I can, but I just wondered in this return to normal, or pushing them towards that, which is what we're having to do, if there's any resources that you guys happen to know about.
Resources on what?
On sort of lessening the anxiety of going back to the way things were, or like now I'm told, you know, I'm going back to school, but everybody's been saying I shouldn't go to school, or I shouldn't eat lunch in the cafeteria, but now that's okay. Or just sort of that, how to move to life after COVID, I guess, those kinds of things.
could I ask, I know this is probably a little out of the box, can I ask one of the moms or parents whose child has recently come back from remote, of any insight into how, I know that I talked to a few of you about they're really anxious to come back and how quickly they kind of bounced back. My gut is that kids are very resilient. And as things get back to normal, it's going to be a very natural state for most kids. I think some kids are very anxious to begin with, and structure change for them is very challenging throughout a normal day. You'll see kids right now, as you loosen restrictions a little bit, or they're coming back to school, they almost appear more relaxed. As life gets back to normal, they're not anxious, but oof, they're taking a breath and going, wow, look, there's kids running around over here, or there's, kids walking in lines and talking with each other. So my feeling is that as kids do get back to normal, I think there's going to be more of a relief factor than there is an anxiety for most, not for all. Some kids are going to struggle. And we can talk about resources for that. But does anyone else, the parents where kids have come back, want to share a little bit about that? Or, because you are the experts in this category. If you're comfortable.
I could speak to that as a parent that we're a week in. My twins had been at home. We had a family member that was at risk. So as soon as he got vaccinated, we decided to send the kids home with a little positive push from the principal in the right direction. And they were very nervous to head back in because we'd been so restrictive due to a family member with high risk factors. And it took one day, really one day. And they got in the car and they said it was the best day they'd ever had. And we didn't have what I anticipated as anxiety producing, it was all me, it was not them. So, and every day after has been the best day, subsequent best day ever. So that's been our experience so far in the reentry.
Yeah, that's a point I would jump onto, that, it's interesting how we tend to absorb as parents, our kids' anxiety and our kids' issue. Often when I'm talking to parents about this, what I say is twist this around to say that what the kids are really doing, they're asking the parent, should I be afraid of this? Should I be nervous about it? So before you give them credit to say, okay, you are anxious, let's step back for a second and say, they're asking you whether they should be anxious. And I say, look, the more confidence they feel from the parent, the more faith that they feel from the parent that they can succeed in it, the more likely they are to go through their anxiety, whatever level they have, and have the faith to succeed in getting back to school. To answer the question directly, I don't have resources on that. I'm wondering if it's a little bit early for that kind of thing. There are resources about kids being anxious about going to school. But I think any anxiety, I go back to many times about the, I'm afraid to go to bed at night, and how the message, what you carry with that, with a child who's afraid to go to bed at night, and if you have to be there, what message are you giving, rather than empowering them to succeed on their own, giving them a flashlight or whatever instrument to have them feel empowered to succeed. So this is the point, is that it's really what the kids sense from us, that no, you can succeed in getting back to school. You're going to be fine. I have faith in it. They get to sense that, feel that, and they're more likely to succeed with it.
And
Does that help?
I was going to say, and back into the community as well. So I see school as kind of one step forward to that normalcy, or to getting things back to normal, and then from school to community. So it's a good bridge for them to kind of feel it out and see what it feels like, and being outside.
Yeah, what's been a challenge. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was
Go
going to
ahead.
say the kids who have come back to school as well are more apt to want to then go to a park, or then go to, oh, okay, if I'm at school and I can play outside, why don't me and two friends go to the park and play the same way we do here? So it's kind of like this, small steps, going with where they're at. I think that's another important thing, is that, some kids can just bust full in. All right, I'm ready, I'm back. And other kids need those small steps. And
Yeah.
you're the expert on your own child. So knowing what they might need is really important to say, okay, today we'll just go over here and then we'll go home. And then tomorrow, and then you, like Dr. Orr said, have a conversation with them and see what they're comfortable with, and go with them, because there is no playbook for any of this right now. We're all in this together. We're all learning together. Anxiety, regular anxiety is one thing, anxiety over things like this is another, but they all are pretty much dealt with similarly in terms of kids, and starting where they're at and then building off of that. Because,
Yeah.
even two kids in the same
What's-
family might have different personalities too.
Definitely. I think I'm also thinking about how awkward it's been for me to like not know all the unknowns that have come with COVID, right? And then we make like these rules that are like, oh, but now the rule is this. And then you tell your kids like, now the rule is this. And then the rule changes because science, right? So you try to explain, no, see, we're still studying because people don't know what this is. And I guess it's just all those, as I'm trying to keep up with all those things that are changing and just like absorb them for myself, and then how to digest that and then explain it to like a younger person, because that's where I'm just feeling that sense of overwhelmedness. And there isn't a website that can just fix that for me. So
That's driving us all crazy. And it is because of the change of science, it goes back to Fauci said we didn't have to wear a mask at one point. Yeah, well, because at that point in time we didn't, and science and things change. At first we're washing everything down. We're washing doorknobs. Well, it's really not transmitted very much by contact, really. It's the droplets, okay? So, so things do change over time. You discover more, you change your opinions, you change recommendations. And it's been a major headache for us in the medical field as well. Because 1 week we were telling people quarantine for 14 days and the next only 10. So it's been kind of a mess that way. But at least, still going back to the issue that things are improving and things are getting better and loosening up so that kids can get an expanded pod or expanded group of people, getting them more outside, getting them together with friends they haven't seen for a year, as we've talked about. Even those smaller connections, especially if they're in the same school, will help them also get back to where they're supposed to be in school.
Yeah, it's just that year of unanswerable questions, isn't it? We're just trying to get through it. I think I feel like there's like a through line in all of us, and like where we're kind of like worried that we're doing permanent damage to our kids because they've just been enduring so many things for so long. And it's like, how many times can your mom tell you, I don't know the answer? How many, there's so many things like that we're just worried how they're going to come out of it. I think one of the things too on a lot of our minds is like, this is like the year of disappointment for our kids, and the year of missing out on things, and real grief for a child, whether it's over, true loss, whether you've lost a family member, whether it's like the loss of time with your friends, the loss of normalcy, all those things, that's like real grief for kids. So I think that prolonged amount of grief and loss is scary for us as parents, and like, what's going to happen to our kids? So could either of you speak to that? Brian, I'll go to you first, and then we can go to Lisa.
So the words that come to mind for me is number one, what Lisa mentioned before is resilience. The other word that comes to me frequently is compassion. Understanding. I think we have to reach out beyond ourselves, beyond our families, beyond what's happened now, and recognize that this has been a hard time, but we need to reach out with compassion to the community, to each other. And with that, and in that kind of environment, kids are going to be much more resilient. Kids are more resilient than we give them credit for. And every negative event that happens to kids, if it's countered by compassion and a positive event, they are resilient and recover from those negative events. And so we have to have faith in that, and have faith in kids that we're going to all get through this. We are all going to get through this. If you read about the great flu epidemic 100 years ago, it was not unlike this at all. And it was terrible. People were wearing masks on the street, even then. And even wearing masks at baseball games, and wearing masks for a long time. And a lot of people died. A lot of people, probably more than what we've already suffered. And they recovered from that. And then followed that with the Great Depression. So, I mean, talk about horrible times. That was a horrible, horrible time. But human beings recovered. We are resilient people. We are not going to stop anything of our lives from this horrible year. We are going to get back into community. We're going to get back to seeing people. We're going to get back to understanding what happened to other people and understand what happened to them. Be sympathetic and empathetic, give them some compassion, and we're going to grow and move on from this. This is not a stagnant time that is going to continue. We are going to get out of this and go forward. And if we are able to reach out to other people with compassion, our kids will follow right along and be resilient.
And I also wanted to add to that, that's excellent advice. The perception of positivity and the perception of we are going to get through this is really important for kids. But I also want to talk to you as parents as well. I'm a parent of 3. I think we tend to get a little bit more disappointed in what our kids are losing than sometimes the kids themselves. I had 2 kids miss 2 different graduations. And I was so sad. I'm like, oh my goodness, they don't have their graduation. And one of them was like, oh, whatever, I'm going to go down here. And, you know, I, for weeks, was so saddened that he couldn't have his college graduation. And he moved on very quickly and learned something different. So how we respond as parents, we have to get rid of any amount of guilt. Like I said, I want to reiterate, there is no playbook for parenting during a pandemic. No one has ever written it. So if right now I have slippers on, you know, like whatever goes, however you need to get through the day is how you need to get through the day. And just hugging the kids at night and saying, hey, we got through another day. You know, we are going to give it a shot tomorrow. Whatever we didn't get to today, we will get through tomorrow. And if we didn't get to go to whatever it was that was planned, well, let's have a food fight in the kitchen tomorrow, or whatever you're comfortable with. However, we can do this with them and work with them so that they don't feel that loss. You know, they only feel loss when we kind of perceive this as a loss. If we perceive it as, okay, so we're just going to have to change plans today, and talk about flexibility. And what does flexibility mean? Oh, you know what flexibility means. That means we have to do something different. And we can make it fun, or however that is. Yes, that requires a tremendous amount of energy. And we absolutely know that. And we are all exhausted. So that's where the team, you know, knowing when to call in the supports, knowing when to call in the help is really important. And that doesn't mean anything negative. That just means we are just all in this together. So, you know, whether that is a neighbor to just keep an eye on them for a minute so you can get your breath in the other room, you know, whatever that is, because everybody is doing their absolute best for this. And we all know that. And I think we all have to give ourselves credit for being here tonight and also having these conversations, because this is very hard. It's not easy. And believe, you know, and whatever it is for kids, you know, just being there and just being present for them goes way further than those things that they're missing in the long run.
You know, a lot of families can also flip and talk about things that have happened good in as a result, the silver linings. And many of us have had that silver linings of things that do, whether it's playing more games at home, doing puzzles, watching a show series together, whatever it is, that there are some silver linings of this time that we've had to pull back from a lot of our known society to this. So emphasizing those positives are a very important thing to recognize as well.
And the positive may just be getting dressed in the morning. That may be your positive of the day for some kids,
Yeah.
especially the older ones. Yes, you got dressed today, and that's it. But that's okay. We'll take it for today. So every little bit counts.
Yeah, those are such good reminders too. I think, yeah, especially like the one about guilt. It's so easy for us to feel guilty all the time about everything because we're just trying to do so many things at once and not feeling like you're not doing any of them very well. That's hard.
I'm often say I'm a big proponent of no guilt parenting. I mean, just do this one thing. While you're saving money for their future, keep part of that money for their therapy they'll need later on. Because, I mean, we all do our best, and whether what we do impacts them positively, negatively, there's going to be a little bit of both. And eventually they'll be who they're supposed to be with hope, but we can't control everything. We certainly couldn't control this year, but we just all do the best we can. And the main thing is, like Lisa's talking about, is just love your kids, care about them, be compassionate towards them, try to even reach out beyond your house and see what else is happening in your community. Go to the open door and bring some food there. See, that there's a lot of people that need some support and service even outside our house, and it just opens up kids' eyes too about being compassionate to others outside the house.
I love that idea. Well, does anyone else in our audience, our participants, have questions that they want to make sure they get in there? I've certainly got a couple more I can throw out. Also, we did list this as a 45-minute event, so feel free to jump off if you need to, but our panelists have said they would be willing to stay a little bit later to continue the conversation, so we can stay on a little bit longer.
We just got started.
I know, it's going so fast.
I was going to say, I also have resources to share. So if you want to email me at West Parish, please feel free. You want to reach out. I know that you keep moving around, but I think it was the last name was Kay asked about resources. That absolutely, you could email me right at West Parish, and I can forward you any information that you're looking for. We do have on the website, the Gloucester Schools website, when we were in quarantine, there is a tremendous amount of resources under the counselor section. We probably should update them now because it was earlier on, but there are a lot of nice websites that you can go to in terms of general anxiety and mental health. But we can add to those the more current ones if you'd like to reach out. Thanks, Lisa. That's really helpful. And we would be happy to help get those resources out too if anyone wants to reach out to GEF. I do have one thing I wanted us to hopefully touch on tonight, and it's a big issue, but I just think it's important to mention because I feel like every parent is struggling with this, and that's like that our kids' brains are turning to mushy goo because of all the screens that they're on all the time. And, we talked about this, we had a conversation like this last spring and we were worried about it. And now it's like, oh my gosh, it's been months and months and months of screen time, and it's certainly gotten out of control in many houses. My kids range from age 7 to 14, and I feel like they're all complete screen addicts at this point, and I feel really bad about that, and I'm just not sure what to do. And I guess I also, it's kind of back to that same other question, is like, how do we break the cycle? How do we make sure that we're not doing permanent damage to our kids? It's, part of it's just necessary. They have to be on the screen for school at this point. And then, I don't know, what do we do to get control?
Mm-hmm.
Brian, go for it.
Yeah. Lisa touched on it earlier that, flexibility and I would bring in another word, variety, that, it's time to expand what we're doing. You know, whether it's doing a family puzzle together or going for a hike in a greenbelt or trustees location or just on a beach. I mean, there's plenty of beautiful places, but there it can be time to institute. Oh no, there's family time, no screen time. As we're getting into better weather, get outside. I can tell you from my own experience as a pediatrician, what I'm seeing is that a lot of kids are not getting outside. And I love I forget what brand it is. One of the clothing brands says there's no bad weather, there's just bad clothing. So, you know, I just wish kids would get outside more. Get outside, get them outside, go outside with them. And get especially as we get into better weather, outdoor activities together as a family. Make a point of it. It's on the calendar. This is what we have to do. I think it's very fair to go back to start. And I was one who said at the beginning of the pandemic, loosen up and allow more screen time. I think it ties into a detriment to the kids. It serves more for isolation. It keeps them away from face-to-face interaction with friends. I think we need to start pulling back on it. And I think kids need family time, outdoor time, friend time. And all of that spells a community. And that's what you really need to start expanding your mind to. During our prep for this, I mentioned passeggiata. It's a thing that in Italy, Italians after dinner, they all go for a walk. I mean, you see the whole town out walking in the plaza in the middle of town. So just go for a walk after dinner. But something where you're doing something as a family outside is the thing to do, number one thing to do.
And I'd also like to add, I think because family dynamics are different, you know, family situations are all different. I think the best thing for the younger students, at least in elementary grade, is having a schedule for it. Because if, you know, trying to go from being on your screen all the time to, okay, no screen anymore is going to set them all a flurry. Mm-hmm. And the best thing is to earn screen time. So, you know, there's certain things they have to do for school on the screen, and that's not earned time. That's stuff they have to do. But there's also, you know, 20 minutes of earned screen time. If, you know, you've done certain amounts of things, okay, there's 20 minutes. After that, we shut it down and then we go do something else. So variety is also very good for kids. There's a lot of great things that a lot of kids have come to experience on screen time. There's a lot of kids that had such struggles in school with friends that can now negotiate on screens because it's less intimidating. So a lot of kids who had trouble socially in school do a little bit better in this format. So, you know, every kid is different and every family situation is different. So really figuring out what works for your family. If you think your kids are getting too much screen time, then your kids are getting too much screen time. In the long run, my personal and professional opinion would be to schedule it in the day, just like you would anything else. So it becomes a regularity, but it's not something that you struggle with. It's something that just becomes expected, just like in school. And they can earn it. You know, I'm always a big, you know, motivation is great, and to earn something is always great for especially younger kids. They will work very hard for it. Yes, they will. When it's something they enjoy. So
could be a way to get the house cleaned up.
I do that here.
Chores.
Exactly what I was referring to.
That is
The house has never been more vacuumed than it has.
Right.
With earning things.
I like that. That's good concrete advice. Well, if no one else has any other specific things they want to bring up, I want to just draw your attention to the chat quickly. Larissa is posting some information. We're going to be hosting some additional workshops that are focused specifically on helping us as parents get through. I feel like we've been talking, this has been really helpful to talk about how we work with our kids and helping our kids get through this year. But what what has been a common thread is that we can't help our kids until we help ourselves. And it's really important to figure out ways to do that. So we've got another speaker coming in later this month and for the coming couple of months that's offering to do some workshops for parents. So I hope you'll all tune in for those. And someone else just posted a good resource. It looks like, oh, Christine, thanks, Christine. Dopamine, right? So scary. Thank you for sharing that. That looks good. And with that, I think we are ready to come to a close, unless Brian and Lisa, I also just want to give you the chance to say anything you forgot to say or wanted to make sure you get across tonight to our parents. You've been so helpful, and so it feels like really good support hearing from you guys and good reminders of how that, we are going to get through this. We've got this. So thank you. And go ahead if either of you has anything you want to say in conclusion.
I want to exactly back up what you just said is that, yes, I am so excited that everyone has joined us for this conversation for their kids. I really do think it's equally important that you have this conversation about yourself. This has been a very difficult year for everybody. And as much as your parents, you are your own human being as well. And if you're struggling or you're having a hard time, or if you're not, it's really important to create that balance because we do get drawn in very quickly to the needs of everybody else during this time. And if you don't have that little bit of time to kind of pull back and breathe yourself, there's no way you're going to be able to teach your kids to breathe. They watch every single thing you do and they're so perceptive. So they learn from you as well, not just so much what you say, but what you do and how you act. And you could tell everyone, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. And your kids are looking at you going, no, you're not. You're not, Mom. You're losing your brains. So really, I hope that you take up the Gloucester Education Foundation on those resources as well, because those are definitely equally important. So.
Ryan,
Well,
anything to say?
Yeah, I mean, it's really good for all of you to have come, and it shows how important your kids are to you, for you to come to a forum like this to listen to, see if anything can ring true to you. I just can't emphasize enough how resilient kids can be. I think we worry so much about our kids, but they're really incredibly resilient. I think given enough care and love and support, they are going to have enough positive experiences to get through this pandemic and go beyond it. So loosening up a little bit so that they can build a little bit more community, not in big groups like Lisa said, not in the big groups, but small groups. I think that will further their mental health needs and help them to start marching out of this pandemic, and have faith. I think we will, we all can be resilient and recover from this, and we will. We are going to. And we're starting that process already. You can see it, you can feel it. So.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for being here. Lisa, Brian, Ben, all of our parents. It's just so good to come together with all of you. Encourage you to reach out to each other, reach out to us, and let's stay connected. And remember, we have another session next Tuesday night. Everyone's welcome. We'll talk a little bit about our older kids and what's going on with them. All right. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Night.
Thank you so much.